Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier sessions, we had completed chapter 4, unit 1, which was related to understanding of various types of markets and very importantly, the technical aspects related to the revenue we discussed in that unit. And I asked you to revise chapter 4, unit 2, which was discussed much earlier after the demand and supply theories were discussed. I hope you would have revised it thoroughly before we enter into chapter 4, unit 3. Let us get into this chapter 4, unit 3, which is the climax of business economics, one way we can say, wherein we have to finally find out the equilibrium price and output to be determined under different market conditions. Equilibrium for naturally the manufacturers. We are here to understand the implications of economics on business, that is business economics. So for a business, what should be the price that they fix, the equilibrium price, or what should be the quantity that they should produce and sell, both in the long run and short run, more particularly in the different market conditions, because the markets are different forms, different structures. So how this equilibrium price and output will be determined, we have to check that here. But by the way, we have to also understand one point. We know already equilibrium price determination at a conceptual level already. We know already how the equilibrium output is determined already. We have discussed that. Only thing is, we are bringing that already existing knowledge to different market forms depending upon the characteristics of those market forms. And briefly, we already discussed also what are the characteristics of different market forms, namely perfect competition, monopoly, monopolistic competition, and oligopoly. And we will just look at those characteristics in a little bit of more detail, nothing much different. What was there in unit 1 is little elaborated in unit 3, that's all. But what is the crux of this chapter ultimately is the second point, equilibrium price and quantity of output, how to determine them, that too both in the short run as well as in the long run in different markets. So each market condition, like perfect competition or monopoly or monopolistic competition or oligopoly, how to determine the equilibrium price and quantity is the ultimate objective of this particular unit. And what happens in the long run in general in the markets, whether they are going to incur losses or making economic profits, different types of market structures will give us different types of results. We will examine that also. And in general, what are the welfare implications of each of the market forms as a theoretical understanding? In other words, what is the impact of a particular market form on the consumers, on the public or society in general? That also can be understood in this unit 3 of chapter 4. But let me once again remind you that most of the theoretical technical aspects that we are going to discuss in this unit are already known. They are supposed to be known. That is why we have been learning business economics all these days in detail, so that we can apply those things in this chapter and this unit. So the technical aspects related to cost, related to revenue, related to demand or supply, or even price determination already should be known. All that we are going to do here is bring all of them at one place. That's all. So ideally, that should be done with a reasonable quickness, because we already have the building coins with us. All that we are doing is just connecting those dots and bringing into a shape for our ultimate objective of determining equilibrium price and quantity for different types of firms in different types of market structures. So naturally there will be a lot of repetitions. Most of the things are those which we already know. For example, the starting point itself. See, normally how the price of a commodity and quantity exchanged per time period is going to be determined. We know that already. That will depend upon naturally the market demand and market supply. Naturally, yes. And the third one we are introducing, and market structure. Demand and supply we already know. Now we are introducing market structure. What does market structure tell us? Market structure once again means one of those four types: monopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition, perfect competition, one of them. So what does it tell us? It tells us how the buyers and sellers interact to determine the equilibrium price and quantity. Because each of the market structures will have different types of demand functions and revenue functions of the firms. All of the market structures will not have same type of revenue and demand functions because of the nature of market structures is being unique and separate. So that is first point. And what does market structure tell us? It tells us a particular firm's power to fix the price of its product. For example, monopoly is such a type of market structure where the firm is a price maker because they have the power to fix the price of the product. Since there is no competition, it is their freedom to fix the price. Nobody is going to compete with that. So monopolist will have the highest form of power to fix the price. Naturally, the perfectly competitive market is that where the firm's power to fix the price will be almost negligible, as good as zero. Why? Because in a perfect competition, the firm is a price taker. In monopoly, the firm is the price maker. Okay, where will the monopolistic competition and oligopoly will stand? Somewhere in between these two. They will have some bit of power to fix also. At the same time, they will not have that much of flexibility also. So the market structure is all what is going to tell us what determines a firm's power to fix the price of a product. And what is going to be the profit maximizing price? Ultimately, that is what everybody would like to know. Every business would like to have such a profit maximizing price with all complications we already know. Profit maximizing price is not that key. We will have how highest price that is possible. Not possible. We cannot fix that price. Market may not accept it. People may not buy it at that price. Lot of other equations will come into picture. Consumer behavior, demand, all those things will come into picture. So profit maximizing price is not just about anybody fixing highest possible price. No. That has to be an optimum price, which gives the maximum profit within the parameters of all the economic theories that we have. That is the best price. And that has to be definitely the price which will be a function of the demand and supply when it comes to the market as a whole. But what should be the profit maximizing price at a firm level? How does a firm determine its profit maximizing price? Does it just look at economics theories only, or will it also look at the different kinds of markets? It has to look at the market structure in which it is operating. So different kinds of markets will have different profit maximizing prices due to differences in the nature of competition. So what the firms have to do? They have to also closely understand the nature of market before determining the equilibrium price and output. And how these four most important types of market structures are going to behave, and in each of those market structures, how the firms will try to determine the short run and long run equilibrium price and quantity is what we are going to study in this particular unit. That is unit 3 of chapter 4. Let us start with the perfect competition. Once again, if we understand one of them correctly, automatically the remaining things will have minor variations only. But we should understand first of all the theory of how we are applying various things that we know to one type of market structure. If we can apply to perfect competition, we can apply to monopoly later, we can apply to the oligopoly, monopolistic competition later. But let us start with perfect competition. What are the features of perfect competition? As we discussed earlier also, the vegetable market or Raitu Bazaar is a classic example of perfect competition. What will be the features of that in general? There will be large number of buyers and sellers in that. most of the people or the suppliers will sell at the same price. That means there is a market price which is already almost as good as fixed. Not much choice is there for one seller over the other to charge a higher price. In other words, the sellers are price takers. And another very important factor here is product homogeneity. Means most of the products will have more or less same features. There will not be 100% homogeneity, but more or less they will be same. You cannot separate the products from one seller to another seller, because more or less all the products will have same types of features. That means there is no big product differentiation, we can say. No product differentiation automatically means products are homogeneous. These are the general features of perfect competition. They can be once again elaborated like this. First point is large number of buyers and sellers. So when there is large number of buyers and sellers, within the total supply, the share of each seller will be small, and same way within the total demand, the share of each buyer also will be so small, which means no buyer and seller is in a position to influence the price or demand or supply in the market. One seller or buyer cannot influence, cannot dominate the market and the market price. So in general, what happens? Price is determined by market itself, of course, which is a factor of demand and supply overall, no doubt. But individually, one buyer, one seller cannot have any influence or impact on the market price. That is the first and foremost characteristics of perfectly competitive market. More or less all of them we discussed already. We are just elaborating them. Need to read through these things. Then the second thing is, mostly the products which are all supplied by the firms are identical or homogeneous. In other words, we can also call them as perfect substitutes. So naturally, when there is a lot of homogeneity between them, why one person can be able to charge a higher price than the other person? Who will buy from them? No, nobody will buy. So naturally, there will be a single market price, and no firm can raise the price of its product above the price charged by the other firms, because naturally, when it increases the price, when a similar product is available from others at lower price, people will go and buy there. Then naturally the firm which has increased the price will lose the business, so nobody will do that. So that means what? Ultimately the price is fixed by the market, that is a single market price, and products are all homogeneous, identical and perfect substitutes. And buyers also will not have any preference between different sellers, because for them it doesn't matter. When you go to any just general vegetable market like Raitu Bazar, okay, relationship wise, if there is one guy from whom we always buy, is a different story. But otherwise, what difference it makes? You go to this shop, that shop, another shop, the buyer will not have any difference between one seller and another seller. There is no brand loyalty or attachment between the buyers and sellers much. That is perfect competition. And most of the agricultural products markets can be the examples of perfectly competitive markets. So that is another feature of perfect competition as a market structure. And not only that, in this, the consumers will have perfect information about the competing prices. So they know mostly the market price is same. Imagine if one of the sellers is selling at a lower price, everybody will run to him and buy from him, because they know the information about the competing prices. That's what is a perfect competition. See, as an example, we are taking Raitu Bazar, vegetable market and all. In reality, there is nothing called perfect competition that exists. Please don't try to apply all these theories into realities according to our own whims and fancies. That will not help. Just understand the theories, understand the examples to understand the theories. Not that we'll try to understand the theories directly from examples. That will be always dangerous, as I always tell. So just these are features of perfectly competitive market. One and most important feature for us is actually only one. That is, the sellers here in this perfect competition are price takers. They are not going to determine the price. Market is going to determine the price. That's all. That is going to be helpful for us for our future technical discussion. But other features are also theoretically just mentioned, which can be asked in the questions. So that is the second characteristic of perfect competition. Third characteristic which is given here is that every firm is free to enter the market or go out of it. See, practically is it possible? Anybody can just like that go and put a shop? Not possible. Practically, that is why we cannot think like that. So these are theoretical things. So theoretically in perfect competition there should not be any legal or market related barriers. So barriers will not be there for entry also and exit also. Means anybody who wants to come into this market and sell their products, they can come and sell, and if they don't want to sell, they can go out of the market. So entry and exit is free, and no barriers to entry, no barriers to exit are there in perfectly competitive market. However, perfect competition or pure competition, we can say, is not practical in reality for all the characteristics to be followed. One thing is sure, price is fixed by the market. That will be generally there in reality also. But all consumers have perfect information. We cannot say really exactly all products are homogeneous. Exactly they may not be, but so much almost they might be homogeneous. Perfectly the people are free to enter and exit the market. No barriers at all. See, no barriers will not be there. Maybe less barriers will be there in reality. Like that, these three conditions if are fulfilled, we can call that as pure competition. So pure competition is that there should be absence of the element of monopoly. The above three conditions will make it a pure competition. What are the three conditions? Large number of buyers and sellers, and products are homogeneous, and no barriers to entry and exit. That is what is pure competition. But there are some more conditions. If we add to the pure competition, then we can call it as perfect competition. And once again, this is also what we already have discussed. There will be the perfect knowledge of market conditions on the part of buyers also and sellers also. Both of them have full information about the market, so their decisions are all made rationally by knowing very well market conditions. That is another assumption, or you can say the feature of perfect competition. And another feature is that the perfectly competitive markets will have very low transaction costs. There will not be much of time or money involved for entering into the transaction. It will be easier to enter into a transaction and complete it, which means low transaction costs will be there. But on top of all, what we are more interested and the most important feature of perfect competition is that individually each firm is a price taker only. They are not price makers. So what the firms have to do? Silently they have to accept the price, whatever is determined by the market forces of, naturally, how the price is determined? Demand and supply. So here, the firms are individually definitely the price takers. And if at all, any one supplier would like to increase the price, because all the other people have perfect knowledge and perfect mobility, the person who has raised the prices, who raised the prices over and above those which are charged by others, then he will lose his customers. So that is not going to happen. Simply speaking, the firms in perfect competition are price takers, not price makers. They have to accept the price fixed by whom? Market forces of demand and supply. So usually the perfect competition, really the perfect competition, can be seen only in this stock exchange, bonds, foreign exchange, as we discussed earlier, or the commodities market like gold, silver, platinum, which are also traded mostly online. There we can say almost most of these features will be fulfilled. At a lower level, agricultural products may have some features of perfect competition, but otherwise normally most of the other products will not be in a perfectly competitive market. Practically it is difficult to find out a perfectly competitive market. But once again, all of them will not be easy also. For example, if you take stock market, anybody can come free to enter the market and go out. For buyers and sellers, it is okay, they can come and go. Barriers are not that much, but you still have barriers, right? You need to have a demat account, you need to have a broker account, and you need to have a investor ID. All these things are supposed to be there. Then you can enter and buy and sell the shares. Like that, the point is, you cannot take these characteristics 100% literally, but yes, most of them are only fulfilled by financial instruments or commodities markets and agricultural products, which depict most of these features of perfect competition. Anyway, coming to our topic, which is our objective of this unit, is to apply all that what we know in determining the price of this particular firm or industry also, because price is not going to be determined by the individual firm. Individual firm is a price taker only in the perfect competition. So how the price is determined in the perfect competition? It will be the equilibrium price of the industry itself. Industry means once again market. There are so many people who are all there. So what is industry in economic terms? It is a large number of independent firms put together. We can call that as industry. And in perfect competition, what they are producing? They are all producing homogeneous products. And so naturally there is a competition among each of them, and the total output of the industry is equal to the total demand. Naturally, total output means total supply. When that is equal to the total demand, then we say that industry is in equilibrium. That is a price at which we can call that as equilibrium price. Nothing new. Where total demand is equal to total supply, that is equilibrium price, right? That is what is equilibrium price of the industry. But the firm is said to be in equilibrium when it is maximizing its profits. So we have to mix these two different concepts at one place. First, let us understand how the industry price will be determined. What is there to understand in this? Already we know that. How price is determined? Demand curve, supply curve, where they are intersecting with each other, that is the equilibrium price. That is the same thing. There is nothing new here. So this is the equilibrium point where the demand and supply are getting intersected with each other. So this price will be the equilibrium price. That's all. That price is determined by whom? Industry, the market itself. That is what is equilibrium price for the market. So what the seller should do? What the individual firm should do? Can he put any price more than that? Not possible. Less than that also generally he will not do. So the point is, he has to follow the market price. Why? Once again, we have to always keep in mind, in perfect competition, the sellers or the suppliers are price takers, not price makers. So, if anybody fixes a price more than P, nobody will buy from them. Nobody will buy from them. Imagine if anybody fixes a price lower than P, which doesn't happen, then everybody will buy from them. That's what perfect competition, how it works, theoretically at least. So the point is, there will be always an equilibrium price at which the market will operate. At any price which is more than equilibrium price, then the market will make sure with its forces of demand and supply to bring it back to equilibrium price of P. If the real price is less than equilibrium price, once again the market will make sure it again pushes the price so that it becomes P. So when, let us say, the supply is more than demand, that's what happened when the price is already P. After that, the supply is more than demand. That is this right segment we can call. So in this segment, what is more, what is less? Supply is more than demand. That means the prices will come down. So if at all there is any price which is higher than P, it has to come down to P. And we know this already. That is how the price is determined in different markets. What if the demand is more than supply? Then the prices will have to be already high and they have to be pulled down. So both of the cases, whether supply is more than demand or demand is more than supply, the market is not in equilibrium. Equilibrium can be achieved only when both are equal. So the simple point is, when the market will be in equilibrium is when the total demand is equal to total supply. That's it. That is about equilibrium of industry, you can call it, or market, we can call it. And that is how the price is determined in perfect competition, because the firm does not have any choice. So what will be the equilibrium price of the firm? That is the same price which is determined in the market also. The firm does not have any special facility of determining its own price. Whatever the price fixed by the market, which is this, the same price has to be fixed by the firm also. So this is the individual seller's demand curve in perfect competition, as we have discussed already in unit 1. For a perfectly competitive firm, perfectly elastic situation, the demand curve will be parallel to x-axis. So that's what is there in case of individual seller. But where this price is coming from, it is the same price as determined by the market. Separately, the price is not determined by individual seller. And why is that? As we just now discussed, because the firms in competitive market are price takers. So they cannot influence the price of the products in the market in their individual capacities. Not possible for them. So what will be the price? Who will determine the price? Market will determine the price. Industry will determine the price with the help of total demand and total supply interaction. That price will be charged by the individual seller or individual business or individual firm. That's what is going to happen in perfect competition. So once again, if, for example, a particular seller wants to sell at a price higher than P, will he be able to do that? Not possible. Because if at all they increase the price more than P, they will lose the customers to other firms. And they will not sell at a price below OP also, because there is no incentive for it. If they are reducing prices, they are reducing their own profits. Simple logic is, if you can sell a product, market is going to absorb your product, take your product, demand is there. If you can sell a product at 20 rupees, why would you sell it at 18 rupees? Why should you sell? You are losing unnecessarily 2 rupees per unit. Nobody will do that. So the point is, they will try only to sell as much as they can do at a price of OP. That is a price that is fixed by market. That's what is the perfect competition situation, how it looks like. Nothing new here. But only point is, we are mixing up the demand supply curve related to the market and average revenue, marginal revenue, demand curve of an individual seller in a perfectly competitive market that we discussed in unit 1. At the same place we are bringing them, because that is the nature of perfect competition, where the firms individually are price takers. That's it. Because they are price takers, how is this demand curve for them? That is going to be a horizontal line. Naturally, that is when the elasticity of demand is infinite. Even if you increase the price a little bit, nobody will come to you. That means the elasticity of demand is infinite. Once again, we cannot be imagining that in real life. Infinite, zero, those things will never happen in real life. But theoretically, when you use the word perfect, means perfect. That is theoretically perfect. Really, there is nothing called perfect. So that has to be always kept in mind. So that is what this perfectly competitive market will behave like, and from that, a competitive firm has to adjust its price so that, adjust to the market price, so that it earns the maximum profit. So price it cannot fix. Ultimately what it can adjust is its output only. According to the market price only, they will continue to maximize the profit by selling as many units as they can. That's what their objective will be in a perfect competition. So how many units they can sell, that much profit they can get. And as we already know this, table 4 also is nothing new. It's also known. Equilibrium price for industry. Demand supply is there. What will be equilibrium price? Naturally, at that price where the demand is equal to supply, that means the equilibrium price is 2. That can be easily identified. Now at this price, how the revenue will be there for a competitive firm, let us understand with this table. Let us say quantity sold is 8 units, but price can it change? Do we have any downward sloping demand curve, something like that? No. It's a horizontal demand curve. Means what? Price is always 2 rupees. Nobody can change that. Market determined that, because that is the equilibrium price where the total demand of the market was equal to total supply in the market. That is fixed. And this individual firm is only a price taker, so it has to fix a price of 2, no option. But it can increase the quantity sold if the customers are ready to buy. If they can sell at 8, if they can sell 8 units, then the total revenue will be 16. If they can sell 9 units, total revenue will be 18. Like that, total revenue will be 20, 22, 24. But just if you observe, what is the average revenue? Total revenue divided by number of units. That will be price naturally, because price is fixed, average revenue is fixed. But most importantly, marginal revenue is also same here. Marginal revenue, how much here in this case? That is also same, 2 rupees. So the average revenue is equal to, marginal revenue is equal to the price in case of perfectly competitive firm. That is why we have the horizontal demand curve. So what we can conclude here, when it is a firm operating in the perfectly competitive conditions, because it is price taking firm, the average revenue, marginal revenue will be equal to price. That can be observed from the table, and it can be even observed from the graph also. Then coming to the conditions, and this also we know, nothing new here. What are the very 2 important things, that conditions for equilibrium of a firm? Where the firm will attain equilibrium position, it has 2 conditions now. One of them we know that, second one we will introduce it now. What is going to be the equilibrium position for a particular company or a firm? Always, what is that? We know this. Their marginal revenue should be equal to the marginal cost. That is where the firm should operate. That should be the equilibrium quantity at which the firm should operate. That means MR should be equal to MC. So what if MR is greater than MC? Then that is good, fantastic. Then you better to increase your production, expand further production, and sell more units. That is good to expand. If marginal revenue is more than marginal cost, understand the concepts. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost means what? The revenue generated by selling 1 more unit is equal to the cost incurred for producing 1 more unit. When both are same, the firm has already reached its equilibrium. But if marginal revenue is more than marginal cost, that means the revenue generated by selling 1 more unit is more than the cost incurred for that same unit. That means you got a better revenue than the cost, means it is good news. Profit you are making, means you better expand the production further by selling additional units, if that is the situation. But what if the situation is like marginal revenue is less than marginal cost? Then naturally they have to reduce the output, since additional units are adding more cost than revenue. So when marginal revenue is more than marginal cost, still there is a scope for expansion. When marginal revenue is less than marginal cost, the firm has to reduce its level of activity. But when it has to, where it has to operate, where the profits are maximum, only at a point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. That is a very important point here, and that is common for any market. This is an inherent characteristic of any firm. But what we are trying to bring here, that characteristic we are going to apply to each market separately. Now which market we are talking about? We are talking about a competitive market. And we know that in competitive market, the demand curve is horizontal, and that is what is marginal revenue curve also, and that is what is average revenue curve also, that is what is price also. So how can we maximize the profit in a perfectly competitive market? There also it should choose its output in such a way that marginal cost equals its price. Why price? Because price is nothing but marginal revenue in this case, not all cases, only in this case. In case of perfect competition, marginal revenue is equal to price. Marginal revenue is equal to average revenue. Other types of markets, average revenue, market revenue will not be same. We know the relationship, marginal revenue is equal to average revenue into E minus 1 by E. Because in this case, E is infinite, marginal revenue, average revenue, both are same. In this particular case only. That means what is the best possible output for a firm? That is the output at which the marginal cost equals to its price. And price anyway, it is not its own price, it is a market price, which it has taken as one of the firms in the competitive market. That is a very important first point to be noted. The logic is common in all markets, but features are not common. Logic is what? Always the firm has to operate at that level where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. But because in perfectly competitive markets, marginal revenue is nothing but price, we need to equate what? Marginal cost to price in this type of market condition. And another second important condition here is the marginal cost curve should cut the marginal revenue curve from the below. Means marginal cost is equivalent to marginal revenue but not from above. It should be equal to the marginal revenue from the below. It should cut it from the below. In other words, the marginal cost should have a positive slope. We know that marginal cost initially reduces, later increases. So when initially reduces the marginal cost, is that the phase we are talking about as equilibrium? No, we are not talking about that. When it rises later, when it cuts the marginal revenue curve from the below, that is the best possible output or equilibrium output of a firm. Once again, you have to keep our objective in mind all the times. What was our objective? We need equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Sir, what is equilibrium price in case of perfect competition? Whatever the market decides, that is the equilibrium price. How market decides? Demand and supply. Simple. Now coming to equilibrium quantity. How equilibrium quantity can be prescribed or can be determined by the individual firms? They will do it by following two principles. What are the two principles? First, marginal revenue should be equal to marginal cost and marginal cost curve should cut the marginal revenue curve from the below. These are the two things that should be satisfied. Now let us understand this with the help of graphs. That will be relatively easier to understand also. What is the equilibrium quantity? Now, of course, the price is determined always from the market. This is always common. Price who is determining in a perfectly competitive environment? Market only. How they are determining? We know that, nothing new. What is this price? Demand supply intersected here, that is price. So same price continues here also. Price is not changing. So the same price will be equivalent to average revenue also. In other words, the average revenue, marginal revenue, price all are equal in a perfectly competitive market. And for a firm also, it has no control on this particular line. So this horizontal line which is parallel to x-axis, no firm can have any control on that because it is fixed by the market. That is external factor. Now look at marginal cost. Cost is not external, cost is related to the firm. Firm has some cost. Say, imagine the marginal cost curve, as you know, will first go down and then will go up. Imagine it has cut the marginal revenue curve at 2 points. One is at T and one is at R. So question is Q1 the equilibrium quantity or Q2 the equilibrium point or quantity? Q1 is not equilibrium quantity. Why? Because marginal cost curve at point T is cutting the marginal revenue from above. Whereas at point R, the marginal cost curve is cutting the marginal revenue curve from below. Why is that? You can understand also. Let us say a point T is there and we have stopped our production at Q1. Thinking that, okay, marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Yes, at T also marginal cost was equal to marginal revenue. First condition was satisfied. We ignored second condition, let us say, and we thought we will stop at T. We are losing all this profit, right? Why? Because after T, marginal cost was going below marginal revenue. When marginal cost is below marginal revenue, that is profit, fantastic. But we are losing all this profit if we are stopping our production at Q2. That is why we should not do that. It means the firms should not do that. They should not stop at Q1. They should further increase their production till Q2, where their marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue and the marginal cost curve has cut the marginal revenue curve from below at point R. So what is the equilibrium quantity in this particular case? Answer is Q2 is the equilibrium quantity for a firm to decide that. That is how equilibrium quantity is decided. How equilibrium price is decided? We are not deciding. Firm is not deciding. Market is deciding by taking demand curve, supply curve, interaction of those two will give market price. The firm will only take that price. That's it. That is how the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity will be decided under perfect competition. Now let us just look at this one more separate topic, actually nothing much to do with our requirement. Our requirement is done. What is our requirement? To find out equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. We have it now. How we got it? Equilibrium price was determined by market, by the interaction of demand and supply at market level. That price is adopted by the firm, and that itself is a marginal revenue curve. And where the marginal cost curve was cutting that marginal revenue curve from the below, that was the equilibrium quantity we have decided as Q2 in this case. That is the objective fulfilled. But just for one more another understanding, as a unique feature of perfectly competitive markets and firms, for a supply curve of the firm which is in the perfectly competitive market will be almost represented by the marginal cost curve. So this is one more interesting thing related to the competitive market, where the marginal cost curve of a firm will be depicting its own supply curve. How to prove that? See, we can prove that by just drawing both in the same shape, right? Both are same we'll say. That's what is proved here. So marginal cost curve is like this. This is marginal cost curve. That itself is as good as the supply curve also. So what we can conclude here, this can be a question by itself. What is the conclusion? In a perfectly competitive market, a firm's supply curve will represent dash. A firm's supply curve will represent or will be represented by its marginal cost curve only. So the marginal cost curve and supply curve both are same in case of perfectly competitive markets. Once again, pure theory, pure analogy. In reality, we cannot really expect exactly something like that. But theoretically, yes. So that's what is one more point here to be noted. In case of perfectly competitive market, marginal cost curve and supply curve for a price taking firm is perfectly competitive market, will be one and the same. They are more or less similar, you can say, for satisfaction. Exactly will they be same? No sir, no, nothing exactly will be our same, but they will be almost more or less the same. That is a point to be noted. And marginal cost curve above this average variable cost curve will exactly represent that. Prior to that, whatever marginal cost is there, that is different. So particularly speaking, where from it is exactly depicting it, from this point or this point. So where the marginal cost curve was cutting the average variable cost curve, from there onwards, when the marginal cost goes on increasing over and above the average variable cost, that portion is representing the supply curve of that particular firm. That is one more feature we can say. Now the question comes, can a competitive firm earn profits? Of course it can earn profits. How it can earn is what we have to identify. What are the possibilities in the short run? What are the possibilities for a firm to get profits? When a firm attains the equilibrium position, it may earn supernormal profits or normal profits or even losses. Three possibilities are there. On what it will be depending? Will it be depending upon the external conditions only? External conditions are always same, because price is anyway not determined by the firm, it is determined by market. But profits will be determined by what? Those will be determined by the combination of price and cost. Price is not in our hands, but cost is there within our hands. Simple common sense. If cost is more than the price, it will be loss. If cost is equal to price, that will be no profit, no loss. Or we can call it normal profit, as we discussed in the earlier session. Zero economic profit is called as normal profit. And if the cost is less than the total price, then we are talking about supernormal profits. These are the three conditions or possibilities that might occur. But once again, we have to be very clear the distinction between the economic costs and accounting costs, economic profit and accounting profit. That is always the most important point. We have to also understand this. There is a distinction between normal profits and supernormal profits. So, when we say that exactly a firm is having zero economic profit, that is what is called as normal profit. Because Zero economic profit means what? Already the revenues are covering not only accounting costs but also economic costs, including what? Whatever the managerial remuneration that the entrepreneur might have charged notionally, or the interest that he might have charged on his own capital, that is all earned already. Then only it is zero economic profit, not negative. So, zero economic profit means what? Normal accounting profit. That can be understood with an example here given in this particular paragraph. Look at this example carefully, observe this. Suppose that the cost of producing 1000 units of product by a firm is 15,000 rupees. So, cost of production is 15,000 rupees for producing how many units? 1000 units. So, take it separately. 15,000 is real cost, that is accounting cost also, economic cost also. Then the entrepreneur has invested 50,000 rupees in the business and a normal rate of return in the market is 10%. So, is it a real cost? No, it is an imputed cost. Interest on capital, which he would have achieved if he has not invested in this business but invested elsewhere. That is what is opportunity cost, that is what is imputed cost, that is what will be part of the economic cost. So, what will be the cost of the self-owned factor, that is capital here? 50,000 into 10%. That will be 5,000. You can call it interest on capital for simplicity purposes. He would have got it if he invested elsewhere. Because he has not invested elsewhere, he lost that opportunity. So that becomes part of economic costs. So 15,000 is accounting cost, 5,000 is imputed cost, which is part of economic cost. Thus the total cost of production is, here we have 20,000 rupees, let us say. And how many units are sold? 1000 units. He has already mentioned that, which means what? What is the total cost per unit? That is 20 rupees. Imagine if a firm is selling a product at exactly 20 rupees, means the selling price is exactly 20 rupees. What can we call that firm? We can say that firm is earning normal profits. Why? Because already the imputed cost also is included. And at 20 rupees selling price, economic profit is zero. Economic profit is zero. But there is normal profit of 5,000 because that is accounting profit. Imagine at 20 rupees the firm is selling, means the sales will be 20,000. What are accounting costs really incurred? Only 15,000. That means 5,000 profit is there. No? It's a different story. That is only accounting profit. It is not economic profit. Economic profit will be zero. That is what we call normal profit. Let us say if at all the firm is selling at 22 rupees the product. That means it is making positive economic profits. Means it is making a 2 rupees profit per unit over and above its economic costs. That means it is making positive economic profit. So positive economic profits are called as supernormal profits at the rate of 2 rupees per unit. All these possibilities are there. Just for example, we can continue this, though it is not given here because the numbers are there. Imagine if the firm is selling at 18 rupees per unit. We don't have any choice on that. This price 20, 22, 18, it is not the firm that is deciding, it is market that is deciding. We have to take it. But each of them is different instance. So, 20 rupees was different case where the firm was making normal profit or zero economic profit. 22 rupees was a different instance where the firm was making supernormal profit or positive economic profit. 18 rupees is the place where the firm is making profit. Or can we say it is like economic profit? No. It is actually making economic loss. But it is making what? It is making accounting profit. So whenever we are talking about profit or loss, normally speaking, which profit or loss we are talking about here? Economic profit or economic loss. So when we can conclude this, let us say this the price here is equivalent to the price is equal to the total cost. Which cost? Economic cost. That is when zero economic profit or normal profits. When the price is more than the total cost, including imputed cost, that means economic cost. Then positive economic profit, that is supernormal profit. When the price is less than total cost, that will be economic loss. But Will it definitely indicate accounting loss also? Not necessarily. Imagine if the firm is able to sell at only 14 rupees. That indicates economic loss also, accounting loss also. If so, that is the different scenarios where the firm in a perfectly competitive market or environment can make normal profits also, supernormal profits also, and sometimes losses also. These are the three categories and three possibilities that we are talking about. Now let us bring our understanding of equilibrium as well as the profits and losses that are going to be made by different types of situations in a perfectly competitive market. This is very simple and logical here. You have to be able to just draw these graphs casually. First and foremost thing is, in a perfectly competitive market, we have horizontal demand curve, that itself is average revenue also, marginal revenue also, price also, that we know. So average revenue is equal to marginal revenue is equal to price. But we needed one thing. Also we know that what is equilibrium quantity, that has to be always manufactured by or produced by or sold by any firm. That is the quantity at which the marginal cost is equivalent to marginal revenue. So the marginal cost line, as we know earlier also, let us say it will be like this. That is the marginal cost line. That is marginal cost line. What it will determine? It will only determine the quantity. This is the quantity which is equilibrium quantity. Price of course is already fixed by the market. So marginal cost line, where it is cutting the marginal revenue line from the below, that gives us the equilibrium quantity. This is standard. There is nothing difference in this. But now the point of profit or loss comes according to the average total cost curve. So imagine if the average total cost curve is like this, if at all it is like this, average total cost curve, as we know, it also will come down first and then goes up. If this is the situation, what happened with the average total cost? Average total cost at some point of time was less than average revenue, means the price. That means price was higher than average total cost. Average total cost curve was going some point of time below the average revenue or price. So, of course, beyond this Q, there is nothing. We don't have to even look at that. That is not at all our horizon. But up to this, what will be the situation? Here, this is going to be the area where the firm is going to make normal profits. Why normal profits? Or you can call it super normal profits actually. Why? Because there is a positive profit here. Positive profit because there is a zone where, this is the zone in which, in this area, entire area, the price was higher than average total cost. So that is the area that has been highlighted here. That is what is profit zone. That is the area in which there is profit zone. And you can understand this also with a simple horizontal line that is drawn here. So if average total cost is cutting, or it is at a Q point, what is the average total cost? This is the average total cost. And what is the price? This is the price. So when this is the average total cost at Q quantity and this is the price at Q quantity, what will be the overall revenue? Overall revenue will be this much. This entire thing is revenue. Total, we can say this entire area is total revenue of the firm. In that, how much is cost? This much. So naturally, how much is profit? The remaining amount. So this area is what will be the total profit area. We can call that as super normal profit also, because in this all cases what we are talking about, where the profit zone is there, the price has been more than the average total cost. When price is more than the average total cost, naturally that is the profit zone. So what is going to be the profit zone here? You just draw a horizontal line here, and this entire area is going to be the profit zone. This entire area is profit zone. That is how supernormal profits can be depicted naturally when the average total cost curve is going below the price line, Some area is there where the price was higher than average total cost. If that is the case, naturally there is profit area. Now, remaining things are same. Average revenue is same, marginal cost is same, that is going to be same. But imagine if the average total cost curve is going like this. Average total cost curve is going like this. Of course, it is always a U-shaped curve, but it is just touching this point. It is not going below the price, which means what? The average total cost curve is exactly equal to the price. That's all. It has never made any additional profit. So what happens in this case? Because Q is the quantity that will be sold, P, or you can say OP multiplied with OQ will be the total revenue. That is total revenue. And the total cost will be also equal to the total revenue, which means zero economic profits will be made. So simple logic, if you observe in figure number 18, what happened to the average total cost? That was below the price line. And now if you look at another situation, that is figure number 19, how is the average total cost? That is just touching the price line. So total cost is equal to total revenue, or average total cost is equal to price. That means there is no profit, no loss. In other words, we can say that is zero economic profit. But we can call that normal profits. This is what is normal profits. Zero economic profit is nothing but normal profit. And here, when we talk about this situation where the average total cost is below the price, that is super normal profits or positive economic profits. So what are the things that we have to identify here? That has to be very clear. Of course, we know the marginal cost curve, how it will be, the average total cost curve, how it will be. But what are the points here? The questions can be asked in anything. So what is the average total cost here in this case? Average total cost in this case is BQ, because that is where the average total cost is there. BQ is the average total cost. What is the firm's price per unit here? EQ, that is a price. Then what is the profit per unit? Here, naturally EB, the remaining thing, average revenue minus average total cost. So what is the total profit? EB, EP, EB, EP is the, or EB, AP, or AB, EP. So AB, EP is the total area of profit. What is the total revenue? Total revenue is this entire area. Each of them can be a bit. What is the total revenue here? Naturally, the total revenue is OPEQ is the total revenue. OPEQ is the total revenue. In that, ABOQ is the total cost. That means total profit is going to be ABEP. That is the total profit. That is what it is. By identifying from the graph, we should be able to identify the region. So when the average total cost is below the average revenue or price curve, that situation creates a supernormal profit. The normal profits when will be generated? Exactly when average total cost is equivalent to average price or average revenue or price or marginal revenue. Then what will be the revenue here? Same revenue. EB, or sorry, EQ, OP, whatever the name you call it, OP, EQ, whatever it is. What is the cost here? Same. Cost also OP, EQ. So cost is equivalent to revenue, which means no profit, no loss, zero economic profit. That's what is called as normal profits. That is second scenario. Or we can also call normal profit as zero economic profit. Then another scenario might be there where the firm can incur losses. Now you can understand from our graph where this average total cost curve was not even touching the average revenue or price curve. It is somewhere going above it, somewhere just above it is going. Means what? The total cost is higher than price. The average total cost is higher than price. Somewhere above that it is going. Then what we should do? Of course, the equilibrium quantity is Q only, where the marginal cost curve cuts the marginal revenue curve from the below. Price is P only, because that is what is decided by market. We don't have it. But because the average total cost is higher this entire area will become losses. That is what is the loss area. In this example, where we have this graph of figure number 20, what is the loss area here? APBE or ABEP is the loss area where the firm will operate. Why is that? Because the total revenue here is only this much. This is the total revenue. Because at a price of P, how much quantity is sold Q? That means the total area of this OP into OQ will be just the total revenue. That will come to OPEQ. But total cost is higher. OQ quantity is sold and cost per unit here is BQ. So what is the total cost? AOQB. That is total cost. When total cost is more than the total revenue, the difference is what is basically this entire area of losses. And when this will happen? When the average total cost curve not even touching the price curve, it is going above the price curve, then losses will occur. But each of them is very important. From the graphs you should be able to identify what each area is representing. And by the way, the first two aspects, irrespective of average total cost, this one is common. This is common for perfect competition because price is line is going to be horizontal only, marginal cost going to be like this only. These are internal, and marginal cost wherever it cuts the marginal revenue line, that is the equilibrium quantity. So this is common. Only thing what changes, whether the average total cost is below this or whether the average total cost is exactly touching this or whether the average total cost is going somewhere above this. This means what? This. So if the average total cost is going below this, like this, then there is a possibility of supernormal profits or positive economic profits. If the average total cost is exactly touching it, then there is normal profit or zero economic profit. If the average total cost is going above the price line, then that results in losses. These are the three possibilities in perfectly competitive condition for any firm. And once again, you need to be able to identify the revenue, which is total revenue, and total cost, and profit area or loss area according to the graph that is given. So where the equilibrium quantity will be found out, that is always the place where marginal cost line cuts the marginal revenue line. But profit or loss will not be found from that. Profit or loss will be found by taking where the quantity is cutting the average total cost line. If the quantity is cutting the total average total cost line here, so this will be the cost here, means BQ will be the per unit cost. So EQ is going to be the price, EB is going to be the per unit profit. And same way totals, if you want to multiply, take the total area. But in this case, EQ itself is the price also, EQ itself is the average total cost also. That is why there is no profit, no loss. Look at this case. Per unit price is how much? EQ only. Per unit cost is how much? Average total cost, BQ. Per unit loss is how much? BE. But totals means you have to take the entire area. So what is the total revenue in this case? Revenue is only OPEQ. What is the total cost in this case? OABQ. What is the loss in this case? APEB. So this area is called as loss in this case. So in any graph, you don't need to draw the graphs, but you should be able to identify the profit zone or loss zone, total revenue how much, or total cost how much. Difference between them is profit or loss or just zero. That we should be able to identify. This is the short run equilibrium for a competitive firm. Three different scenarios we have seen: supernormal profits, normal profits, and losses. Very, very important discussion. And as I said, once you understand the logic of how this is calculated, only the shape of the graphs will change, the concept will remain the same. In all the other types of markets also, the concept will remain the same, how this equilibrium quantity is going to be determined. Of course, equilibrium price will be determined in perfectly competitive market by the market itself. In other markets, how that price is determined, we will see that later. But definitely, the way we find out profit or losses will be same. Where average total cost is more than the average revenue or price, then it is loss. Where average total cost is equal to average revenue, that means zero economic profits or normal profits. If average total cost is below the price line, then that will give supernormal profits or positive economic profits. That's it. That is the three things. We have to be very, very thorough with that. Now let us look at this in illustration, simple illustration which is given. Very important. This type of things can be asked in exam. Not like big questions, but some table will be given and few questions, 3-4 questions can be asked. So Tasty Burgers is a small kiosk selling burgers and it's a price taker. It's a price taker. Means it is operating in a perfectly competitive environment. The table below provides a data of a Tasty Burgers output and cost in rupees. So quantity is given 0, 10, 20, 30 like this. Total cost is given. See now first of all you should fill this table yourselves. I think you have to do it yourselves. You can draw this and do it separately on paper. That will give you the best possible practice. When quantity is 0, total cost is 100 means what? That itself is fixed cost, right? So fixed cost is always same. That is going to be 100 only. Write this. Don't just put same, but write 100, 100, 100 in all the cases. Then naturally when total cost is 100, fixed cost is 100, variable cost is 0, average variable cost is 0. But average fixed cost we cannot tell because denominator is 0. Marginal cost we cannot even define. Starting from 10 units, let us say. Here, fixed cost is 100, total cost is 210, which means variable cost is how much? First segregate that. Variable cost and fixed cost. So 210 minus 100 is 110, 300 minus 100 is 200, then 400 minus 100 is 300, variable cost we are talking. 540 minus 100 is 440, then 790 minus 100 is 690, then 1060 minus 100 will be 960. That is total variable cost. Average variable cost means per unit you have to calculate. Per unit average variable cost. So 110 divided by 10, that will be 11 rupees. Then 200 divided by 20, that is 10 rupees. Then 300 divided by 30, that is also 10 rupees. 440 divided by 40, that is 11 rupees. 690 divided by 50, that comes to 13.8. 960 divided by 60, do the calculation, 16 rupees. Like this, average variable cost can be found out. Average fixed cost can also be found out. 100 divided by number of units. So 100 by 10 is 10, 100 by 20 is 5, 100 by 30 is approximately 3.33, 100 by 40 will be 100 by 40 will be 2.5, 100 by 50 will be 2, 100 by 60 will be around 1.67. Like this, we can fill this table whatever is given. Marginal cost. What is marginal cost per unit? Here we have to find out because the number of units are given in multiples of 10. That is simply the difference in cost divided by the difference in number of units. That's what is marginal cost. So 110 divided by 10. 110 divided by 10. Marginal cost is 11. Then once again, difference in cost 10 to 20. 210 to 300 it has become. That means 90 divided by 10. That is 9 rupees marginal cost. Then you have 300 to 400, 100 changed means once again 10 rupees is marginal cost. Difference in cost by difference in number of units. 140 by 10, 14 rupees. 790 minus 540 means 250 by 10. 250 by 10, 25 rupees marginal cost. Then 1060 minus 790 divided by 10. 60 minus 50, that is 10. So 1060 minus 790 divided by 10 is 27. This is marginal cost table. The point is, questions can be asked any of them. Just straight away we can find out that. First we fill the table. Question number 1. If the burgers sell 14 rupees each, what is Tasty Burgers profit maximizing level of output? Profit maximizing level of output is how much he is asking. So profit maximizing level of output means what? That is where the marginal cost should be equal to the marginal revenue. And for a perfectly competitive firm like this, where it is a price taker, marginal revenue is equal to price. So where marginal cost is equal to price, at this point it was equal to price. Here it was equal to price. That means what is the quantity that it should sell? Ideal quantity, equilibrium quantity is 40 burgers. That's it. That is a table that is given also there. So the point is, first question answer is 40. 40 units is the equilibrium quantity that they should do, where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Second question, what is the total variable cost when 60 burgers are produced? Total variable cost is asking. 60 burgers are produced, total variable cost will be 960. Already that also we calculated. Answer is 960. You have to put pen on paper and do it. By watching you will not get anything. You do it, then you get it. You watch it, just it will go out of your brain very easily. And you will be again facing issue in solving the questions in main exam. So don't just watch this. You put pen on paper, write a table, draw it. You don't have to do it with scale and all. Just normal table, just draw it and do the calculations. That's all. Important thing is how to calculate, not how we present it, because this is not a subjective examination. This is an objective type examination. MCQs are there. So calculation is important. You have to do that on paper, then only you will get it. I'm telling you third time. I will tell 300 more times also. But if you do it and follow it, then you get the marks. Otherwise, in the exams, you will definitely face issues. None of us want that. So do it on paper. Third question, what is the average fixed cost when 20 burgers are produced? 20 burgers are produced is asking average fixed cost. We already found it. Average fixed cost was 5 rupees. So that is the answer. 5 rupees is the answer when 20 burgers are produced. That is the average fixed cost. Then between 10 to 20 burgers, what is the marginal cost? Between 10 to 20 burgers, what was the marginal cost? That was 9 rupees per unit. Already that also we have calculated. 9 rupees per unit. This was the marginal cost between 10 to 20 burgers. 9 rupees per unit. So that's it. Like this, any questions can be asked. This is only an example to understand how the cost concept and equilibrium concept can be applied in case of a perfectly competitive firm. Now, coming to this other discussion of a competitive firm in the long run, what will be the difference here in the long run? There is no difference in the concepts actually. There is nothing special also. In case of short run, we have three possibilities as we have observed. One is normal profit, one is supernormal profit, one is losses. In the long run, in case of perfect competition, it so happens that no firm will be able to make supernormal profits. Every firm will be able to make only normal profit. So in the long run, what happens in case of a competitive firm is, those firms which are able to maintain normal profits will remain, and those firms which are not possible or not able to make normal profits also, means which are facing losses, will exit. That's what happens in the long run. Because we have to also understand, in a perfectly competitive environment, the firms can enter the industry also, exit the industry also, where entering and exit is relatively easier. So when there is a short run supernormal profit, imagine if there is a short run supernormal profit, some firms are enjoying, other people will not sit quiet and watch it. They will enter into the business. They will come and they will also start the same business, because some of the firms are earning supernormal profits. So naturally, when more people come into the market, supply will increase, slowly the price will decrease. That will reduce their profits also. And finally, most of the firms will just get normal profits. So the point here is, in case of long run, the firms are at equilibrium, where there is the average total cost curve, which is tangential to the demand curve, which is defined by the market price. That's it. Is there any possibility that ATC is going to be above it, below it? Generally, no. If it is above it, then nobody will be able to do the business. Everybody should get out of this market. That business itself will be shut down, gone. Entire industry will be gone. But if ATC is below it, that means people are making supernormal profit. That situation will not continue in the long run. More and more people will come. So because they are also limited by the supernormal profits, which people can make in short run. So the point is the supernormal profits can be only made in short run, whereas in the long run, the firms will be earning just normal profits. That's all. That's all. That means the average total cost, long run average total cost we are talking, that should be tangential to the market price. It cannot be above that. It cannot be below that. Then what happens if it is above that, below that? Market will adjust itself in the long run in such a way that it becomes once again tangential to the demand curve. So simply speaking, any difference in the average total cost and demand curve in the long run, the market will adjust itself in such a way and the changes will continue in such a way till ATC is tangential to the demand curve. What happens to the firms which make losses in the short run? They will leave the industry, they will get out of the market. So many people will be there like that. And slowly what happens because of that? The prices will rise, costs may fall because the industry contracts until the remaining firms in the industry cover their total cost, at least including the normal rate of profit. Whatever that remaining firms are doing, ultimately in the long run, their average cost will be equivalent to price. So what is the long run equilibrium of a firm in the perfectly competitive market? We can look at this particular graph that is given here. In the long run average cost is having here the price. So what is the equilibrium output at that point? This is the equilibrium output, that is the Q1 at which the long run average equilibrium will be settled after certain changes in the short run. But we don't need to bring short and long at the same graph. So don't look at this area. This just ignore it. Just look at the long run cost. So long run average cost, where is it equal to the average revenue, which is nothing but price? That is where the equilibrium will happen in the long run. So simply speaking, what is the equation that is going to be prevailing in the long run? That's what you should remember and always keep in mind is short run marginal cost is equal to long run marginal cost, because at this level if you see the short run marginal cost also equal, long run marginal cost also equal, same. Short run average cost also is equal to long run average cost, both are equal. So all are equal to price. Yes, all are equal to price. That is equal to marginal revenue, of course, because of perfect competition. That is equal to marginal revenue. So everything is equal in the long run. Equilibrium, that is why we call it. In the long run, it happens so that the market brings all the firms into equilibrium in the long run if it is a perfectly competitive market. What happens in that equilibrium in the long run? Short run marginal cost of that particular level of scale is equal to the long run marginal cost, that is equal to the short run average cost, that is equal to the long run average cost, that is equal to price, that is equal to marginal revenue. All of them will have the same tangential point to the price, and they will have all equal values in the long run. Once again, is it really going to happen practically? Absolutely everything is equal? Not possible. We have to understand the essence of it. It is equal means what? The market will create such an environment where it goes towards this direction in the long run. It will be almost negligible difference these things will have. That is the way we have to understand from practical point of view. But theoretically speaking, because we are talking about perfectly competitive market, in the long run all of them should be equal. Yes, they have to be equal. That is theoretical point. So where the equality is achieved? At the lowest point of long run average cost curve, where it is tangential to the price curve. That is where this equality is achieved, and that will give equality to all others also. Long run marginal cost also, short run marginal cost also, short run average cost also, and price also, and marginal revenue also. That is about the long run equilibrium of a firm in a perfectly competitive scenario or industry or market. What about the industry? Industry also same, no? Long run competitive equilibrium of a perfectly competitive industry also will be same. What will be the features? That is important. Main point here is the features here. Features are important. These things you have to remember because questions will come on that. What happens in the long run for a perfectly competitive industry? First, all firms in the industry are in equilibrium. That means all of them are maximizing profit in the long run. And no firm has an incentive either to enter also or exit also. Means what? Their firms are earning zero economic profit or normal profit. When people are earning only zero economic profit or normal profit, new people will not come because there is no incentive for them, there is no supernormal profit. But existing people will not exit because at least they are able to make their opportunity cost served by their economic profit, that is zero profit. So that is another scenario or a situation that in the long run that exists in perfectly competitive markets. Of course, this is always common. The price of the product is that the quantity supplied by the industry is equal to the quantity demanded by consumers. Naturally, always it is the same. The demand should be equal to supply. That is where price happens. That is where equilibrium point happens. Even again here, all of them are equal. Nothing new here. So once again, what happens at long run equilibrium point of industry also? Same thing. Average revenue is equal to marginal revenue is equal to long run average cost curve, that is equal to long run marginal cost. Everything is happening at this point. That is where the long run average cost is tangential to the price line. That is where it is tangential. That is the point of equilibrium in the long run for the industry as a whole. There is no much difference between long run equilibrium for a firm or industry because once again the firm and industry in one sense are having the same price. Both are fixed by the industry only. But only the cost is different. But particularly speaking, the cost concept is not so relevant for industry. It is better to be understood from a firm's point of view. But only in the case of perfectly competitive market, what happens to all the firms in industry as a feature or characteristics we can understand. All firms are making only zero economic profit or normal profit. All firms are maximizing profit of maintaining equilibrium. Of course, equilibrium is always maintained where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. They know that and they are already maintaining that. And quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. That is what is long run equilibrium for the market as a whole. So once again, what does it mean? These conditions are important, depictions are important. So in the long run, very, very important aspect, many questions will come here. In the long run, under perfect competition, the market mechanism leads to optimal allocation of resources, and that is shown by the following outcomes of different equations. First thing first, the output is produced at minimum feasible cost. That is the minimum feasible cost. That is why the long run average cost is lowest there. You can observe that. The long run average cost is lowest at the point where it has touched the price curve. After that, the long run average cost curve rises. So the firms are all producing, the industry is producing the output at the minimum feasible cost, lowest cost. Second, the consumers pay the minimum possible price, which just covers the marginal cost. Means the price is never more than marginal cost. Price is always equal to the marginal cost only. That is the minimum price the consumers will pay. So the marginal cost is equal to average revenue, which is nothing but price. Third, the plants are used to the full capacity in the long run so that there is no wastage of resources. How do we know that? That happens when marginal cost is equal to average cost. Once again, you have to go back to the cost theories, which we know already. That means there is no wastage of resources when marginal cost is equivalent to the average cost. We know that. When marginal cost is equivalent to the average cost, that is the optimum output. Beyond that, if you further increase it, average cost will become more, and that will become a loss-making proposition. So, when marginal cost is equal to the average cost, till that phase, the firm will have at least some positive results in the form of increasing returns. After that, there will be negative returns that will start. So, no wastage of resources is there because MC is equal to AC. And of course, the firms will earn only normal profits. How do we know that? Because average cost is equal to average revenue. That is profit. Revenue minus cost. Average cost is average cost of each unit. Average revenue is nothing but price. So the price is equal to average cost, which means that the firms are earning only normal profits. Understand the difference between point B and point D. Point B is about consumers, where marginal cost is equal to the marginal revenue or price. When the price is equal to the marginal cost, the consumers are going to pay only for the marginal cost. They are not paying anything extra. That is good from the consumer's point of view, where marginal cost is equal to price. But from the firm's point of view, firms can earn only normal profits when price is equivalent to average cost. That is also there in the long run, another feature. And firms maximize profit. How do they do that? We know this, where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, but the level of profits will be just normal profits but not abnormal profits. And of course, there is optimum number of firms in the industry. So each of them is depicting something. These 4 points particularly, B, C, D and E, each of them can be asked as a bit. What is the proof that the consumers are at best possible position? Marginal cost is equal to price. What is the proof that the plants are using full capacity without any inefficiency or wastage? Marginal cost is equal to average cost. What is the proof that the firms are earning only normal profits? Average cost is equal to price or average revenue. What is the proof that the firms are maximizing profit at an equilibrium point, which we already know, that is marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. But of course, those profits will be just normal profits, and output is produced at the minimum feasible cost, and optimum number of firms are there already in the industry. No firm need to come in, no firm need to go out. No entry, no exit. Once again, what does it mean? In the long run, this is what is going to happen. Long run average revenue is equal to the long run marginal revenue is equal to the price is equal to the long run marginal cost, that is equal to the long run average cost. All of them are equal. But once again, always we have to keep in mind, this perfectly competitive market system is a myth. It is all not reality. Theoretically, these are all there. All of them are questions for us. One mark will come from each question. Think that way. Really, where is a perfectly competitive market? I will want to see that. I want to check that. No, not possible, because it is a myth. Because it is going to be just assumed that these conditions will exist, might exist in some theoretical, conceptual imagination, not in the real world. So in the real world, there is nothing called perfectly competitive market. That is what we have to also keep in mind while learning these concepts. But that does not mean anyway there is no perfectly competitive market in the real world. Why should we learn this? That should not be the idea. We are learning this for a purpose. We are learning this for understanding how short-run equilibrium will be there for the firms, how they will fix the prices, how they will fix the quantity of goods that they should produce and sell. That is what is equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. And when they fix a particular price, of course not them, in the perfectly competitive market, the market fixes what type of profits that they can make, normal profits, supernormal profits or losses. These are the various aspects that we should look at. Very, very important discussion. Once again, I am telling you, as far as this exclusive points of many aspects that we already learned earlier and now being applied is concerned, once we understand perfectly competitive market or perfect competition, all other things can be just easily understood. So, very carefully read this first 10 pages of Unit 3 of Chapter 4, and the remaining pages of Chapter 4 Unit 3 will become relatively easier. Only what changes? The way the price is fixed will change. Remaining things will be same. How the profit has to be ascertained or loss has to be ascertained, where the firm will be at equilibrium quantity, those all will be same. But for that to be understood in a very comfortable manner about future types of markets, monopoly, monopolistic competition and oligopoly, first thing first we need to understand perfect competition. Though it does not exist, it does not make any difference to us. For us, questions will definitely come from this discussion. Today's class is definitely worth easily 4 to 5 marks. but not directly only for perfect competition, but even for other markets also. Similar concepts can be very well asked. So unit 2 of chapter 4 and unit 3 of chapter 4 are going to be very highly scoring in the main examination. So read through this theory very well and practice the numbers wherever they are there. Don't just watch them. You should put pen on paper, and wherever graphs are there, try to draw something which you can understand yourselves, or at least try to interpret the graphs according to the description that is given. With that, we'll conclude today's session related to the price and equilibrium quantity determination of a firm and market in a perfectly competitive environment. In the next sessions, we'll continue this discussion about the same things, but related to other types of market structures like monopoly, monopolistic competition, and oligopoly. But we'll discuss those things in the upcoming classes. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.